So thank you all for being here. If you would, please keep yourself on mute unless you have a question, in which case you can unmute yourself and ask away. I would ask that you just state your name and where you're from, just so that we can have that on the recording and the transcript. And then if you're calling in, you can mute yourself by pressing *6. As I said, my name is LeGrand Northcutt. I am staff for the Commission on Local Government at DHCD. And the purpose of this presentation is to help you all get a better understanding or maybe review process for the fiscal impact statements and promote uniformity of response. At the end of the day, these fiscal impact statements are estimates and you are volunteers. So we greatly appreciate your time and your expertise. And we, the commission staff, want to make this process as useful and intuitive and, dare I say, fun as possible. So like any good presentation, we're going to start with the statute. This is Virginia Code section 30-19.03. It requires the commission, to the extent practical, to perform fiscal impact analysis on bills that require increases in expenditures or result in net reductions of revenue. So the purpose of this process is to identify those bills and then write the estimates, and then we will aggregate those estimates, and then those estimates will inform the General Assembly of the consequences of various bills. A couple of words here that are highlighted in this statute. I won't read the whole thing to you, but I want to highlight this is an estimate. So I want to reassure you that Grace and I, are not over here double checking your work or your math. We defer this to your best judgment. And then also a key word here is affected localities. So what this means is that each bill may not affect every single local government, but we don't know that until we send it to you. So therefore, you may get bills that do not affect your locality. We're not trying to get a statewide fiscal impact statement. We're trying to get it for each locality. And so because of that, again, you may get a bill that doesn't apply to you. And if so, we still ask you to note that so that it can then be noted in the fiscal impact statement so that legislators look at that and use that. There are, if you read the whole statute, there are certain types of bills that are exempt from this analysis. Those include optional tax relief bills, permissive expenditures, statewide tax relief, and bills related to court judgments. So you may come across during your legislative session a bill that you think has a fiscal impact, but that does not come to us because it is one of those exempted bills. But if you do think we missed a bill, please reach out to either myself or Michelle Gowdy at VML or Joe Lurch at VACO, and we can all communicate and see whether or not a fiscal impact statement would be. So it's entirely possible that we may miss a bill on the front end, but know that there will be bills with fiscal impacts that we don't set because they are. What is it good for? I want to go over the purpose of the fiscal impact statement. There are three big ideas here. The legislators and the lobbyists do use these fiscal impact statements, and they help to inform their decisions and they help to inform committee testimony. Unfunded mandates are typically, as y'all may have seen, frowned upon in the legislature. So it's good to know that a bill does have a mandate or a fiscal impact on it so that then someone in committee can stand up and say, this is an unfunded mandate, I'm not supporting it. That does happen pretty often for those of you who may be new to the legislative process. Also, last year, there was a broadband bill, and a lot of you identified there was no fiscal impact, and there was a lobbyist who stood up and said, I have a FIS, and it says no fiscal impact, and that was very helpful to getting that bill kind of moved along as it should have. So the second idea here is that your data will be displayed individually. We are seeking individual information from you and from your locality, and your response is going to be a data point, and we will use that to judge the impact on your locality and similar localities. And then related to all of this, these fiscal impacts will be used to differentiate between cities, counties, and towns. It's important to know how it affects each of those different types of localities differently, and that's a big part of getting this through the legislative process. So a quick rundown of your role. your roles and responsibilities as volunteers. You have all at this point, I hope, registered. If you have not received a registration email, please let me know. But your first job is to monitor your email inboxes for fiscal impact statement notifications. The second step is when you are notified, you need to complete the fiscal impact statement estimate within the given time frame. And then, and the turnaround time on that can be anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. It's usually 48. And that's so that the bill can be ready for a committee hearing, right? That first committee hearing is going to be really important, and there's usually not a whole lot of turnaround. And then the third thing is just to submit the assignment when you're done. Make sure that you are submitting just the assignment. If you use your separate spreadsheet or your separate notes, make sure all that information gets into the actual analysis form. And that's just so that I'm not looking at 18 different things when I'm trying to compile. So please don't send me anything outside of this process. Try to get it all into that one. And then these are going to be aggregated, and they will be available to be analyzed both individually and in that aggregate. A quick note on logging in. Your username is your full email address, and your password should have been sent to you from noreply@dhcd.virginia.gov. And again, that's no reply, all one word, at dhcd.virginia.gov. So you can search for that. If you've done this before, you may have actually already changed your password. And so make sure that you use some combination of your standard password. Of course, if you've forgotten your password, you can always click Forgot Password to get the opportunity to change it. I want to take a brief look at this. So I did see a question come across. That's a really good point. If you registered last year, you do not need to register again. So if you're in the system, you're in the system, and you're good. Thank you for that question. So I do want to look at the categories really quickly. When you registered, either in previous years or this year, that you would have had a survey that asked you to check one or more of the 4 categories that we have. These categories should reflect your areas of interest and also your areas of expertise. And they're based on the committees that the General Assembly has. So you'll see for local government or for finance and education, they're mostly finance and education. For local government, you get a little bit broader, right? Now we're talking about conservation, natural resources, transportation, and then for general laws, that's kind of a grab bag. That's everything else. This includes courts of justice, public safety, technology, FOIA goes in here, rules committee bills go in here. So that's kind of the grab bag at the end. I want to pull back the curtain just a little bit here. When a bill is flagged for a fiscal impact statement, it has typically already been assigned to a committee. So what I do is I go into our system and I just check the box for what committee it is, and then that sends out an email to everyone who has been assigned to that committee. So I'm not necessarily going in and looking at you and your locality and giving it to an individual person. I'm assigning it based on what people have checked as their interests and areas of expertise. What this means is that you might get a transportation bill that applies to PDC 8, which is Northern Virginia, and you're in the Lennowisco planning district. But because you signed up for local government, you're going to get all the transportation bills. Again, at that point, just say, this has no impact on my locality because I'm not in PDC, and then you can move on. But again, that's important to note because legislators often need that reminder that their bill is limited. So again, it may seem kind of redundant at times, but please make sure to fill it out if it is. Finally, if you'd like to know which categories you are signed up for, or if you want to change your categories, just send me an email and we can confirm that. So I want to pause here for any questions. I'm going to check the chat. But at this point, if you have questions, please unmute. Okay, hearing none, we will roll right along. Next, I want to give an overview of the template and the components of the actual form that you will be using to fill out. So first, this is an example of the email that you will get when a bill is assigned to you. I want to point out the important parts here. The due date is here. The link to the bill will be here. And then also the link to the portal login page. So all of it will be here for you when you get that email. For the due date, please try for close of business on the due date, but I understand that it's session, and so I don't mind getting emails overnight if that's your style. I had a professor in college who, when a paper was due, he would say, I'm going to start grading at 7:30 a.m. the day after it's due. So as long as I have it in my hand at 7:30 a.m., you're fine. So during session, I wake up in the morning, I check my email, and I drink my coffee at 6 a.m. So as long as I've got your response by 6 a.m. the day after it's due, totally fine. Again, if that's your style. So with that in mind, that is the way that the due dates work. A lot of times there will be 7 a.m. committee hearings for local governments, and so those might actually be due, a day or more in advance, so that I have time to compile this. So the due date is not necessarily the committee hearing date. It's going to be pushed back in accordance with how long I need to get everything. The various components parts here. When you go in and you log in and you click on the bill that you've been assigned, it's going to pull up the analysis, which looks like what we have here on the right. The analysis form will ask you to identify yourself, your locality or your organization, identify what kind of locality you are, town, city, or county. And then you're going to be asked to identify if it is a net reduction in revenues, a net increase in expenditures. Could be both, but very rarely it. It's then going to ask you to provide a rough itemized estimate of where the impact occurs. You're basically just going to classify and explain. So you classify expenditures by recurring or one time, and you classify your reductions by revenue stream. And then at the end of each section, there is a space for just a quick run through of screenshots. Part one looks like this. Again, asking you to identify yourself. Part two is expenditures. It's going to look like this. Notice that there's recurring and one-time expenditure sections, and you've got both fiscal years here. So we do this by biennium. So you're going to be asked to look at fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26. Part three, revenues. It's pretty much the same, but now you're categorizing by revenue stream. So we've tried to get all the main streams here, but there is also an other category if you need that. And what we really want to do is make sure that, note here, you are entering these as positive sums, even though they're technically reductions. If you happen, on a very odd chance, to have an increase in one revenue stream of $1,000 and a decrease in another revenue stream of $10,000, just note that in the narrative section, because there's no way to do positive or negative. So we assume that you enter a positive number for a reduction. And I may reach out to you for further explanation if something looks a bit wrong. From last year, for those of you who did this last year, you may notice we removed the value of the penny question. It just ended up not being very helpful. So you're welcome for that. There's no need to worry about quantifying what your baseline are. We're just interested in impacts. So as we move on, I want to look at what makes a good fiscal analysis and then give you all some tips and tricks as we wrap up. So when you're looking at the bill itself, the first thing you want to think about is the legislation's general intent. Remember that these have all been assigned to a category and a committee, such as education. So if you're in doubt about what the impact will be, look back at that and refer back to that category. And then work your way down from there, right? Work your way through all of your education revenues and expenses. If you're looking at an increase of expenditures, please look at the direct cost of the bill for each fiscal year. Do not consider any second order impacts unless they're going to be realized in that relevant fiscal year. So for example, a bill may require you to build a building. Well, that building may take 3 years to construct. right? So you're not going to count any rental income from that building in the relevant fiscal year. You're just going to say what you would spend on it, maybe servicing of bonds, other related expenditures. Again, only if it is in the relevant fiscal year do you count revenue from the various expenditures. Remember that an expenditure is, and then also consider program policy implications, right? So this is increase in staff, increase in salaries, where appropriate. Expenditures should also be broadly defined. You should include all the anticipated costs that are listed in the statute. The statute says that an expenditure is a new or expanded program, a requirement to maintain an existing program at a specified level if it was previously unspecified, as well as administrative costs, right? That's your staff and your salaries, or any other programs you may need to buy to implement it, as well as capital for state-related facilities or activities, anything that you would be building. When you're looking at reductions in revenues, consider your baseline estimates, and then also what tax or fee is impacted. So remember, that's going to be where you're breaking it out by revenue stream. Net reduction is what we're looking for. So factor in savings where appropriate, again, for the relevant fiscal year, right? So if it's going to reduce your income, but then you may not have to have a couple of staff people, you can factor all of that in when you're looking at the net. But please, please, please remember, only for that fiscal year. Relevant questions to ask yourself are, will you need less staffing? Or will it reduce your expenses related to implementation because you no longer have to have a certain software that you had to administer the tax? And then finally, check the legislation's timing and impact. If you are new to General Assembly work, there are these things called enactment clauses. Enactment clauses appear in bold at the bottom of every bill text, and you need to read them because sometimes it will say, this bill will not go into effect until January of 2025. It may be delayed in some way. It may be phased in some way. So make sure that you're looking at the timing and the impact before you just jump right in and look at your 2 fiscal years. As you are writing your analysis, just a couple of things to highlight here. Be thorough. Please, consider all the relevant factors that will impact your, again, staff time, administrative costs, software, all of that. Also, reasonable conclusions here. I just really, really want to highlight again, make sure you're confining yourself to the relevant fiscal. If something's going to cost $100,000 over 10 years, do your best to figure out what it will cost in those first 2 years, right? 20,000 and then 10,000 and 5,000 every year after that, do your 20 and your 10. And then maybe make a note that says it will cost $100,000 for 10 years, right? So that information is helpful, but you need to focus on it. When you're considering relevant materials, this is a reminder to include only objective analysis in the FIS. We will not include anything that says this is our legislative package or this bill is a horrible idea. Please do your best to make sure that you are keeping objective analysis here. And then if you want to come to Richmond and speak in committee, you are more than welcome to do so. You don't even need to really mention that you contribute to the FIS. That information in the FIS itself, which will count. So leave your commentary for the committee. Succinct writing is always appreciated. Timely submission, pay attention to those deadlines that can be as short as 24 hours in some situations. And then accurate information. Consult the necessary people and sources to make an accurate. At this point, I would let the relevant people in your office know, hey, I may be calling you on short notice for some. That way they can be on the lookout for your phone calls, your emails, and y'all can turn around these things. Try your best to meet the deadline and talk to all the people that you need to talk to. Again, if you can't talk to everybody, give us your best guess. You are the experts. But at this point, I would say let the people in your office know that you need to Finally, some last minute tips and tricks. Please answer all of the questions. So there is a narrative response for each one. Please write something there, even if it is, this bill does not apply to my locality because I'm not in the planning district. Consider the impact to only your locality. Again, we are not going for statewide fiscal impact. We just want to figure out how it affects towns, cities, counties generically, and then your locality specifically. Again, a reminder to include only objective analysis in each bill, on the bill in each FIS. Another tip here, some analysis is better than no analysis. So, like I said, this is going out to a lot of people. Each bill is going to get 10 to 30 to 40 responses. Excuse me. So your data is useful. So whatever you're able to provide, please do so. For those of you who may have an engineering background, SWAG stands for Scientific Wild Ass Guess. So feel free to do your best back of the envelope analysis if that's what you have to do, right? If you can't talk to the expert, if you don't have the information readily available to you, some analysis is better than no. And finally, reach out if you have help, if you need help. If you have issues with the portal, I can help you. If you need a gut check on a response, or if you need a gut check on like, think that this bill only applies to county manager forms of government, and I'm not a county manager form of government, call me, call Grace. We can help you walk through that. So with all of that in mind, I've reserved some time here at the end for Q&A. Yeah, Kiara, if you want to just unmute yourself, feel free.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, hello, Kiara Jordan, City of Richmond, Virginia. You mentioned when we were going over this template during the revenue section, negative sign, whether we should or shouldn't use it. I'm sorry, could you clarify? I missed that portion.
You do not need to use a negative sign. Just enter all of these as positive values. And if you find yourself, again, so grace and knowledge does never happen. But if you find that you are going to get an increase in revenue, just note that in the narrative section. You can note, B poll tax revenue is an increase in revenue, even though this bill has a net decrease. Because that's the point, right? The bill should have a net decrease in revenue. If it's increased in revenue, then it shouldn't have come to us.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Linda Millsaps asks, what if we have a tiny town in our county? For example, Floyd is 16,000 people. Floyd County. If we have a single town of about 500 people, should I only focus on the county? That's a good question. To the extent, Linda, do you represent the town or do you represent the county?
Hey, I represent the county. I'm the county administrator.
You're the county administrator. Hi. Okay. Then hello. Then I would focus on the county. If you notice that something would affect a town, well, actually, no. I'm just going to say only write about the locality that you represent, because we do have representatives of towns doing this as well, and so they will note the town level.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Grace, do you have anything that you'd like to?
Just very briefly, Morgan, and I think you did an excellent job going over the highlights of what happened. What I would add is that when in doubt, please reach out to us. And also, to that extent, the narrative responses section of your fiscal impact statement are very useful. So if there's something that you would like to note but doesn't fit nicely into your quantified estimate, into your actual monetary value you're assigning to these fiscal impacts, put it in your narrative section. I can promise you, LeGrand and I read every single one of these, and we read all of your responses. So if the information is included in there, we will see it. And whatever information can be put in there can lead to just a better impact statement from our end. even if it is just us conversing with the commission and whatnot. So when in doubt, feel free to just stick it in the narrative section and we can take care of it.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
thanks,
we're
Grace.
grand. That's all I got for you. Yep.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, wonderful. I just want to leave you all with the resources that are available to you. I will email this presentation to everyone once we are done. These are links, so you can see they've got them linked here. But we got this presentation on our website, the Fiscal Impact Review page. We have a good estimate guide, which contains those tips and tricks. And there's also some detailed instructions, which you should have gotten an email from me. Oh, excuse me. Which you got an email from me, but they're also on our website. And then here's a link to our webpage. And then you also got my email phone. So thank you all for your participation. Thank you all for volunteering. And I really, really look forward to working with each of you as we do this crazy long budget session. As always, reach out if you need anything. And thank you all very much. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.